Is the melanin on? Is the melanin on? Hello, everybody. It is your favorite outreach specialist from Trans Connections, your boy, Danyol, Jaye, and you are watching, well, you're watching three things. You're watching Trans Connections Facebook page, you're watching Trans Connections YouTube page, or you are watching our APLA Health Prevention Department page, and we are here with Say Their Names. This is going to be an intimate conversation, a very in-depth conversation regarding the trans experience as it pertains to a COVID era of 2020 and in the fight of social justice, talking about Black trans lives and how the trans experience fits into the overall Black Lives Matter movement and everything that is going on in our country at this time. Okay, now I will warn you, some of the opinions, some of the things that you may hear, you may not agree with, and that's okay. We are here to educate, enlighten, and we are here to have a dialogue and a conversation. I do recommend that those of you who want to be a part of this conversation, utilize that chat box, honey, utilize those comments, leave your questions, your comments, and concerns, and we will try to address them during the show. And without further ado, I want to introduce our two guests that we have today that I'm very excited to sit with and have a conversation with. Up first is my fabulous sister, honey. She hails all the way from Alabama, but she is here representing the center of Long Beach, and also here to represent herself, her fabulosity, her melanin skin. It is none other than the fabulous Mallery Jenna Robinson. Hello, Miss Mallery.
Hello, my amazing brother. How are you, baby?
I'm doing awesome. Look, I've already said it, but before we went live, I was looking at Mallery's stream and I was like, come on, lip and hair and wave to the side. Every time I see Mallery, she got new hair. And I'm just like, you better live. You better live. I can see her twice in one day. She's going to have a new hairstyle.
I'm engaged, girl. I'm engaged.
How have you been? How have you been doing since last we've spoken?
Oh, baby, I'm making it. You know, I'm just living my life to the best that I can and just enjoying and doing me and just so happy to be here.
All right. Well, I am happy to have you here and I'm very excited to get into our conversation today. Now, our next guest is someone that I have just recently met via the fabulous Miss Mallery. And let me tell you something. So I did a deep dive on this individual because, you know, I got to do my research. And so Miss Miliana Singh, which is what we have on the flyer, I found out is an AKA, honey, AKA Lana Patel. And Miss Lana, not only does she work within the trans community and help to service the trans community in regards to trans services, honey, but she's a model, she's a public figure, she's an activist, okay? And she's drop dead gorgeous. I was like, I want this cheekbones, okay? So without further ado, I am so happy to welcome to the APLA Health Conversation family, introduce to some and present to others the fabulous Miss Lana Patel. Hi, Miss Lana.
Hi, everyone. So sorry I'm not giving you a whole lot of cheekbone today, but you know.
I can see the highlight. Don't worry. The light is hitting it just fine. You're giving me very sleek, very, very fabulous.
Yeah.
How are you doing in this?
I'm giving you what is it called? Leisure glam or leisure athleisure. There we go.
Incognito fabulous. That's what we're going to call it. Incognito fabulous.
I love it.
How have you been doing in this time of COVID and all this quarantineness?
Oh, okay. I'm good. You know, I think as good as one can be in the midst of everything going on. I think it's been a very interesting year. I kind of want to get 2020, but at the same time, we don't need to cancel because of last month. Like, we brought the heat, we brought the fire, and it was well needed. And so we're coming for them now. So I'm good.
I'm definitely glad to have you both here to have this conversation. One of the reasons why when I spoke with Mallery about what this conversation would be, one of the things that I wanted to do was really have an in-depth conversation about the lack of representation as it pertains to trans lives in the social justice movement that we have going on. I also want to talk about the experience for trans individuals, even as they navigate COVID. And I think, when we talk about COVID, most people think, oh, well, what is there to navigate? Not realizing that our wonderful president has put into place legislation that really removes a lot of protections for trans people specifically, but for the LGBTQIA community at large. And also just dealing with the fact that your safety going into a medical facility and the things that you have to think about, being misgendered, being mistreated, being, ignored or being, dead named, all of things that we will dive into and explain during the course of this conversation. But first, I want to break the ice because I want to talk about something that's been going on in the media. We talk about trans representation, how important that is. And as of late, Miss Halle Berry, actress, Academy Award winner, she had an interview, and in her interview, she talked about a new project that was coming up for her where she was going to have the opportunity to play a trans man. And in the midst of this conversation, in the midst of this interview, she had made a comment saying that she was intrigued by this woman's story and that this was not a trans story, but a story of a woman and her transition into manhood. And the community came for her quite hard. And so she gave her celebrity apology and obviously said she will no longer be accepting this role, that she's going to advocate for a trans person to play it. But my question for the both of you is, how do you feel about, regarding entertainment representation, trans stories, how do you feel about cisgender folks playing trans folks?
I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. I mean, look, we've had years of that, okay? Jared Leto, Hilary Swank, Charlize Theron.
Come on now.
Halle, girl, go back to the 90s. Boys Don't Cry. Girl, we don't need that. My very first experience seeing a trans person on a movie or a TV there were two. One was Gwen Araujo, and then the other one was Soldier's Girl. And I think it was cis men playing both of those trans women.
I think in Soldier Girl, I did see Soldier Girl. Soldier Girl was my first film that I saw where I kind of saw trans representation. The lead role obviously played by a cis man, but the friend in that movie, I believe, was an actual trans woman. The person who was the friend to the lead. And I thought that was quite interesting that, you get a trans individual to play the best friend, but you don't get a trans individual to play the lead.
Right.
What about you, Mallery? How do you feel about cis people playing trans roles and representing trans stories?
Well, I'm right there with sis Miliana. Like, I'm not here for it anymore. Honestly, we need to be in a place and a space where trans roles, and I've been saying this in so many interviews when it comes to talking about, like, what does trans presence look like in entertainment and in society? Oh, there go, I see Auntie Mallery. Hey, Auntie Mallery. And I'm just being honest, we need to have more trans presence in our media. Like you said, when we talk about trans representation, for me, seeing Soldier's Girl, seeing, a girl like me, a Gwen Araujo story was great. But kind of what resonated with me more recently, probably within the past couple of years, was Lee Daniels' Star with Queen Latifah and Amaya Scott. And she got, this sense of having a love story because she was with an Asian guy. Amaya Scott played Queen Latifah's daughter, Cotton. So it was a trans woman playing a trans woman with a cis man, showing that there was a possibility. Then all of a sudden, girl, they did this whole flip with the crazy prison trade trying to kill her. You know what I'm saying? Which ties into a whole nother conversation about what trans women go through at the hands of sometimes their partners or intimate partner violence. But going back to what you said, I'm definitely right there with you, like Millie. It's time for us to have more roles. And I think, Daniel, you mentioned earlier about even having trans people play cis roles. I'm here for it.
That brings me to my next point. So MJ Rodriguez and India Moore were being interviewed about Pose. For those of you who don't know about Pose, look it up, watch it. You'll probably get your life. But MJ Rodriguez said, you know, as actors, yes, we want to play roles that stretch us. We want to tell stories that may not necessarily be our own for the craft of acting. And she said, if cis people have this kick and this joy of getting into a trans existence because they've never lived one, then trans actors should then have the opportunity to express and represent, you know, traditionally cis roles. And instead of just trans people playing just trans people, they're actors at the end of the day. And so MJ Rodriguez feels like if cis people are going to play trans people need to play cis roles. It needs to be an open opportunity field for all representation. How do you feel about that?
I'm here for it. It's about time, you know, like a lot of us have the opportunity to navigate the world as a cis. Like when people see us, they're just like, okay, boom, bye. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what it's like to be a cis person, like with a full-on lived experience from childhood, but I know what it's like to be accepted as a cis woman into modern day society. I think I can easily play a cis woman. I mean, girl, you want me to fake pregnancy or labor or like I don't have gas. I know what that pain is like, you know. But I think that it's important for us to have flexibility and not to always give us the same tired roles. You know, for the longest, when I was looking at Disclosure, and I've also have friends who work in Hollywood who've done acting. They've always been playing the prostitute, playing the hooker, playing somebody on the street. And it's like, come on now. Like, we are more than just sex workers. We are more than just the people, you know, some deviants that you want to make the butt of the joke. It's time that we are seen as full-fledged people because we live full-fledged lives.
Mallery, how do you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I'm right there too. You know, we need that flexibility. I mean, honestly, that's the best word to describe it. The opportunity, the ability to be able to take on roles that we as trans people may not have had that experience, and to normalize us. You know, like I tell my clients, I'm like, you can be the next bachelorette. You can be the next bachelor. You know, it doesn't have to just be cis white people, you know, thin people. You know, we have our plus size people, we have our trans people. We deserve to be normalized in a space and in an opportunity to be able to be our best selves. And for me, it's like, it's really unfortunate that we're still not there in Hollywood with it being 2020. You know, like there's so many opportunities for gays in terms of being able to play same-sex roles. A lot of times, sometimes it's gay men playing gay men. So it's more normalized in television. You have your gay best friend, or, you know, one of the main characters is gay now. But what about trans? When are we going to see that? When are we going to see a love story normalizing it? Like you said, I mean, Pose is doing a great job right now with everything in terms of showing a little bit of love story between Angel and Poppy, yeah, little Poppy. You know, I'm all here for it. I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, this sister is getting her life back in the 1980s. Baby got her man proposed, and they proposed together. That is what we need to see more of. You know, the time is now. So I'm with it.
So as we talk about representation, one of the things that I think is really interesting. So for those watching, if you didn't know, as I always like to disclaim, I am a cisgender gay man, feminine presenting, obviously beat face here on the camera. But one of the things that I notice in walking through ally existence, being an ally to trans family members, trans friends, and a trans community, when we talk about representation, it's often thought about that representation means we just kind of mention you. You know, like we'll have, you know, if we're talking media, we'll have that one trans character and that one trans story. And really, when we talk representation, it really stops at entertainment. You know, people really stop the ball at, well, you have Pose now, so there's your representation. I don't think people look at representation as it pertains to being represented in society. And I want to talk about being in a COVID era, being in an era where everyone is on medical high string. You know what I'm saying? Insurance companies now have the ability to say, I'm not going to cover your HRT because Trump said I don't have to. You know, I'm not going to cover, you know, we're not going to cover your reconstructive surgery. We're not going to cover your top or bottom surgery. We're not going to cover these things for you because we don't feel like they're essential. And not only dealing with that aspect, but also dealing with the aspect like, even if I wanted to go in and get a COVID test, I got to deal with the paperwork that says, well, we need your dead name. We need your legal name. We need, you know, what were you assigned at birth? And it's all these triggers that come toward you as a trans individual. How do the two of you feel? What do you feel are the kind of foundational steps that need to be made to really change that environment? Do you feel like we're regressing? Do you feel like we have progressed? Where do you feel that we are in that fight?
It's twofold. We've made some necessary changes for good, but then we also have people like, and he's not my president, the cheater in the White House that needs to go.
Come on now. Come on.
But, you know, he and his administration are fighting us because he's bored. He ain't got nothing else to do. So he's going against every marginalized community in this country. I'm ready for him to go. But one thing with SCOTUS and Title VII, yes, he did some foolishness on the 4th anniversary of Pulse. Shame on him, but that goes to show what kind of trash he is. But when it comes to him and what he tried to do with the rights of folks, there's a loophole. So since we did win over with DACA and we got SCOTUS Title VII with protections for folks in employment, that also covers folks in healthcare. So we are still protected, and in the state of California, we have even more protection because the state recognizes us. So if anybody has any issues, please send them my way. I got you. I'm gonna hook you up, okay? Because that cheater ain't gonna mess with your surgery, your hormones, your COVID test. You're gonna be all right. But let's get on to issue.
Yes.
I'm done.
You have to run off of fear and have people, oh my gosh, every week is something else. I'm seeing he's talking about you know, people on work visas and putting a travel ban, and then international students, they can't do online classes, or they gotta go back. No. I'm tired of him. He gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the administration. So don't just vote for him. Okay, vote for everybody.
Come on now.
We gotta redo this whole Senate and state representative situation. But you know, I think that we need to start to normalize trans people and not just represent us in the media. That does help. But the day-to-day, the training, the sensitive and competency trainings is so important that we need to shift the thinking, especially within communities of color, especially Black community. Like, we need to start thinking of gender beyond the binary. We need to see it all as normal, everybody, so that we can lower all of this discrimination going on. I think there's so much patriarchy and white supremacy that's embedded in our system that we need to dismantle. And that is going to allow us to start to get diversity and just see us as people and allow us to stop being under attack for stupid things like the bathroom.
Mallery, well, first of all, let me say, Milani, you are officially like my family. You everything about that answer. Mallery, how do you weigh in? What do you? Twofold question: how much progress do you feel that we've made as a community to really include and represent trans? And the second part is, how much further do you feel we have to go?
Well, definitely the first part, we've made some progress. You know, I mean, look at what we're doing right now. This is everything. we have taken opportunities to come together as allies, you know, from different organizations, from different spaces, representing the trans community, you know, for the better, for helping our clients, our non-binary clients, our trans clients, all throughout the spectrum. So we have made a lot of progress, and there's still more progress to go. It really is unfortunate when I think about our current administration, and when I think about like how it's like the word Miliana used was like dismantle. You know what I'm saying? Like he has literally wanted to go in and dismantle everything that President Obama put into place. And to be honest, I think that is where the, you know, the root of his hatred comes from towards trans people, is because of the fact that President Obama I wasn't even going to use past tense, is so well received within the LGBTQ plus community. So he feels like, okay, what is the one way I can go back and hurt Obama? Oh, let me start taking away trans rights, because, you know, that was the thing too. Now he's even trying to work on getting trans people out of the military again. So, you know, I mean, it's just anything that has been put into place, from Obamacare to just anything that has to do with what Obama put into place for the better. He wants to continue to try to, you know, dismantle that. So in that sense, I don't feel like we progressed as much as I would like, because of the fact that we had done so well with Obama, and then to kind of now go backwards to someone like Trump, it really shows you the kind of climate and mentality that our people have. And so I'm just like, we need to make sure that as an American people that we are doing our part, like Miliana said, and vote, you know, register to vote, make sure, like you said, let's get this administration out of here entirely, and let's get back to being you know, to making progress, to being the best that we can be as a nation. Because right now, his whole mantra was make America great, but there's nothing great about COVID-19, about unemployment, about riots, about, you know, the fact that police brutality, systematic racism. He has not done anything to make America great. So I'm like, you know what, honey, he has to go.
Now, that definitely is an entirely different show. That probably is my own personal show, because my question always is, great for whom?
Mm-hmm.
Great
Okay.
for whom?
They want to glorify this 1950s era, this Lana Del Rey, like old Hollywood. Yeah, that was great. Did y'all watch the Hollywood Netflix show? Did you see how they? Did you see what we were going through back then? Did you see when they passed civil rights, and when we were allowed to have interracial marriage? That wasn't until the 60s and 70s. So great for who? Like who? Only the white people were really living good. You know what I mean? Even immigration.
And the 1% white people. Because the poor white people, sure, they may be up there, you know, up his too. But in the day, honey, they struggling right now. They pretty much wanted some welfare and food stamps too. Well, you know what I mean?
No,
so all the things they said that there was the black people stuff and the minority people stuff. Now all of a sudden it's looking pretty good to them.
Exactly.
Our associate director chimed in a little earlier with a comment going back to representation in media. And he said The Chi on Showtime has a story developing in regards to a trans individual. Now, I don't watch The Chi. I did read an article and did some research on this. There was an actor in The Chi that this storyline was supposed to be for. And he refused to have his character be in a relationship with a trans woman. And I believe he left the show. And so that storyline went to Luke James, who plays a character on the show. And
I love Luke James. I want to say he played on Star, right? And that's my
I didn't watch Star, so I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, girl, okay. I was about to say, I think that's my chocolate drop.
But in regards to The Chi and having the story developing, one of the things that I did read a lot of fans say was that, again, even The Chi, though they try to create this narrative, it almost erases the trans experience. And so it makes it be like the trans woman that's in the show, it has her and Luke James are kind of like in a gay bar or something, and then Luke James' character gets upset that a dude is trying to like press up against him, and gets mad at his girlfriend and says like, this is not my space, this is not my community, why am I here? And like goes off on her. So to me, again, I would have to watch the show. I don't really have an opinion because I don't watch the show, but I will say, in reading a lot of the articles and a lot of the comments, I think that in the entertainment industry, specifically those who are cisgender, need to have trans people in the room of creation. And I think that goes across with any representation. Like, you cannot represent a community and that community not be a part of the decision making and be a part of the creative process. And I find it very disrespectful, for someone who doesn't have that experience to say, "Oh, I'm going to do this for the trans community," but there are no trans people in your creative process. There are no trans people in your writer's room. There are no trans people directing scenes and episodes. So I feel a way about that. But we're gonna table that because I do want to get into a much deeper conversation. Because the two of you not only are beautiful trans women, but you are also beautiful Black women. And for those that have been under a rock for the last 6 months, the rest of us know that we've been in a time of extreme civil unrest, of extreme racism. We have rallied around names such as Breonna Taylor. We have rallied around names such as Ahmaud Arbery, and of course, the name that became kind of the forefront of the 2020 movement, which was George Floyd, the Black man who was killed by an officer with his knee in his neck. And in the midst of this Black Lives Matter, there has been this conversation and a new hashtag that has emerged, that all Black lives matter. And it was to bring attention to the fact that trans lives are being murdered at a really exponential rate in our country. But there is no media coverage for it. They are not mentioned on the t-shirts of the names when you see Black Lives Matter in the fist, and they name all the cisgender folks, all the straight folks, but they don't name the Black gay folks. They don't name the Black trans folks. And it's almost like we have to fight to be included in a movement within a movement.
Mm-hmm.
How has it been for the two of you to have to be a representation and embodiment of such a layered fight in this time? Mallery, we'll start with you.
To be honest, it is heartbreaking. I just, spoke last week over with Behavioral Health Services Adam Teach Project about this same topic, about the difference between Black Lives Matter and All Black Lives Matter. And like I tell them, I was like, to be honest, Black Lives Matter has really just focused on the murder, the police brutality of Black cis people. All Black Lives Matter movement is a movement, like you said, stop erasing us. We won't be erased. That is something we've been echoing for as long as I've been in California, and even before. And so it's like, we as Black trans people, we're sitting here seeing 22 people. It's only July 8th, and 22 trans people of color have been murdered brutally, and there's hardly any media coverage. And our brother, we all know our brother Lucky Fuller. He was really a proponent for Tony McDade, in terms of the Black trans man that was murdered in Florida by a cop as well, but wasn't covered as much. So he did a whole, balloon and kind of bubble release last week or the week before to honor him. And then, we also have, Rhea Melton, Dominique, all of these individuals who because I think all of us may have been at the LA Black Lives Matter, and we are yelling their names too, and we're saying all Black Lives Matter because they do. And that's what we talked about early in the beginning of this conversation, was that we need to start normalizing trans experience. Not, like you said, yes, it's unfortunate when it has to be about our deaths, but if we are seen in the media as lovable, worthy, affectionate mothers, fathers, leaders, like you said, not just sex workers who are found in the back alley, then people will have a more empathetic role, because people can't understand what they don't know. And if they just hear like, and especially when we're being dead named, so they're just looking at like, oh, just another gay guy who was dressing up got murdered, or just another, all these different ignorant statements that they're making because they don't know. But if our stories were out there being normalized, being shared, it could be good.
Yeah, I want to second that. And, I think it comes down to just dismantling. And there's a person that I want you all to watch. She did an amazing video, I think yesterday. It's for Harriet on YouTube. Her name is Kimberly Ann Foster. She did an amazing video on the feminist issue. And she was speaking on why there's so much erasure within the Black Lives Matter movement, within the Black cis femme and cis women movement for trans folks. Why there's TERFs, trans exclusionary feminists, radical feminists within this movement, and why are they pushing us out? And she spoke to it really eloquently. But it really comes down to dismantling white supremacist ideals. If we are going to be true feminists, if we're going to be revolutionary, if we're going to push to have equality for everyone, then our movement cannot sustain itself on just rallying for cis Black men and sometimes rallying for the cis Black woman that's killed. When Ahmaud and George were killed, it was everywhere. I Can't Breathe is everywhere. Brianna, yes, there's a lot of rallying for her, but it's not the same. There's something about this movement. Trayvon Martin, we go out, every cis man, we're fighting. But what about the women? And what about the trans people? And I think the issue is, because I did speak to one scholar who is a part of the Black Lives Matter movement. She knows the people who started it. And I said, what is going on? Why aren't they rallying for trans folks the same way that they are rallying for cis men? And what I heard was that it's one thing at a time. We got to focus on the Black on white issue before we get to this Black on Black issue, because we know a lot of the Black trans women are being killed by Black cis men.
Come on, sis. I was waiting for you to say it. I was waiting for you to say it, girl. I left it open for you because I was like, I know you was going to bring that on in.
And I'm glad you bring it in, because I want to ask this question, because I hear this a lot. This whole, well, we're focusing on this right now. Mm-hmm. And do you think that response really has more to do with the fact that we don't want to focus over here, because if we focus over here, we have to hold our Black cis men accountable to a whole nother level?
Mm-hmm. Of course it does. Because it's like, oh, well, we out here rallying for y'all. We want to make sure that y'all good. The police coming for y'all and killing y'all and brutalizing y'all. But y'all turning around and doing it to somebody else within the same community. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of like hypocrites if we over here rallying for y'all, but then we have to deal with this other situation within the community. So what we're going to do right now is focus on the white people, the white man, the police, the oppressor. And then once we get that under control, we can handle what's going on in the community. But it's like, look, they go hand in hand. You can't pick and choose.
Because I don't think that it ever gets to that point. A perfect example is, for those of you who do not know the name Ayanna Dior. Ayanna Dior is a young trans woman, who was in the same city, same community that George Floyd died in, and was caught on camera being brutally beaten in a general store by upwards of about 15 to 20 Black dudes, all in their teens, 20s, I think. I don't think anybody in that group was over 25. But literally, brutally beat her. It was 20-1. And it took me a minute to watch that video. It takes me a while to watch a lot of these videos, because it's so much emotionally, it's on your timeline, it's in your feed, it's a lot. But I always tell myself, you have to watch it. Force yourself to watch it, because you have to know this is happening. You cannot ignore it. And the amount of rage and anger that I got, that I had at my own community, doing this thing during a time where we're fighting for Black life,
Mm.
where we're fighting for, you know, an end to racism and bigotry and prejudice. And I'm like, y'all were probably literally just marching for George and beat, excuse my language, beat the shit out of Iana
Come on now.
for being trans.
Come on, Daniel. You better preach now.
Like,
Come on.
I don't, it baffles my mind. So, you know, Lana, I definitely agree that a lot of the rhetoric that I hear, even as a cis ally to the trans community, but also as, you know, a Black and Mexican gay boy, feminine gay boy out here in these streets, when I hear that response of, well, we're focusing on this right now, it really angers me. It really angers me because I don't think, yes, I know that there are people who feel like, you know, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, but you can't fight for half a community. If you're fighting for a Black community, you're fighting for a Black community. You don't get to sparse out which part of that community.
And you know what, Daniel, and my fear with that is that this is going to give those all lives matter and blue lives matter. They can't even, their mindset's going to be, see, look, they can't even get their shit together. Excuse my language. You know what I'm saying? They can't even get their stuff together. Look, they all fractured and factioned within their own community. And we're all out here, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is my fear that's coming from the Black Lives Matter and the All Black Lives Matter, is that they're going to kind of look at this, the rest of the people, you know, the cis white Republicans who really could care less, who are saying make America great again. They're looking at this and they're being like, see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, how, you know, people are out here marching, but then look, they have a whole division within their own community. And I don't want that to happen from this.
I do want to ask the two of you, as trans women. So obviously I've had talks with several individuals on this platform. We've spoken to trans men, trans women, non-binary individuals. And one of the things that I always bring up, because when we do talk about, I feel like there's two things going on. I feel like there's a fight between this community and that community, but I also feel like there are a lot of in-house conversations that need to happen that people outside of the community really don't need to be a part of. You know, and I often talk about that as it pertains to people who want to come up and say, well, what about Black on Black crime? I'm like, oh, I don't have the time to school you today, but just put a pin there because I will. But we know from the outside looking in, Black trans women have been the number one target within the LGBTQIA community for years, decades, even before, you know, being trans, you know, was semi-safe to be out in public. And a lot of times, you know, you have people who look at Black trans women and they feel a certain type of way because they feel like, well, there's no representation of the trans man, of the Black trans man. There's no representation of the Black non-binary individuals. And Mallery, specifically with you, I know the work that you do. We've had conversations in depth where you're very much about bump all of that. Like, yes, I'm a Black trans woman. Yes, Black trans women have been at the forefront of these murders, but I'm fighting for all trans lives. I'm fighting for all Black trans lives. How do you guys deal with that kind of tension within the trans community? Do you see it as overtly as people on the outside looking in do? Or is it a little bit more covert being within the community where Black trans women are kind of like glorified and put on pedestals and the rest of the trans community is not?
You know, to be honest, I feel like when it comes to Black trans lives, and especially Black trans women, I don't really think that we're put on a pedestal. I think, if anything, our community, like you said, is the most targeted. I love my Black trans brothers. I love my Black non-binary individuals, you know, but they're not as targeted. And let me explain from my perspective why. When we go back historically and we look at two different scenarios, one is you have a Black gay man who says, you know, a cis gay man who says, you know what, I realize that, this is my assigned sex at birth, but my inner self, my true gender identity is female. I want to now transition. the stigma, the disrespect, the hatred that will come towards that trans woman is instantly, because now they are basically emasculating themselves. And within the Black community, that is not okay. Then you have a cis Black, lesbian who says, you know what, yes, female is my assigned sex at birth, but my true inner self is male. I've noticed within my own family spectrum, within the Southern Black community that I grew up in, that people could rationalize seeing, a tomboy. Or, what I'm saying, oh, okay, this girl is just one of the boys. She wants to play hoops. Da 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 da. Men could wrap their heads around that better. Cis Black men, right? When we talk about like the population that is killing us, Black trans women, they can handle that. But the idea of, and most of the time people can handle that to an extent. Okay, this is their outwardly look at things. It's like, okay, this girl's just a little masculine or whatever, But then when a guy is feminine or wanting to trans, it's a whole different story. And I think that's true across the spectrum for all trans women, is that within that culture of transitioning from male to female, it's almost looking like, oh, why would you choose to, and I've heard this before, why would you choose to give up your rights as a man, to be on top, to be, in the media for being murdered, to have a platform is what I'm saying. Like how George Floyd is a Black cis man, his manhood, his manliness, the fact that he is cis is what has catapulted us to this level of the Black Lives Matter movement, as opposed to you want to be this Black trans woman and you're not even getting coverage. So there's such a disparity within the community about that, and it's just really unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're on pedestals. I definitely, there is, a division within the community because of the fact that from a Black trans male and a Black non-binary individual, they're saying, oh, this is where everyone's attention is, from CDC data to our own data collections. Everyone's just focused on the girls. But at the same time, the reason why they are so focused on us is because we are the ones that are being most murdered. So it's twofold.
Would you say, and I want to hear from you as well, Lana, would you say that when people bring up what about Black trans men, non-binary, in the in-house conversation, do you think it's comparable to white folks who say, well, all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter?
I don't want to say it is, because I know at the end of the day, our Black trans brothers and non-binary Black non-binary individuals will look out for us. I have very close relationships with several Black trans men, and so I know that at the end of the day, we're gonna stick up for each other when it all, it's like we can fight between each other. You know what I'm saying? But we're all on one for all. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's that kind of separate. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of conversations. We all need to sit down at the table. Daniel, I would love for us to do another episode where we have us, including some Black trans men, some Black non-binary people, and let's really try to get down. Okay, see, that's why I said it, because I had a feeling.
Yes, sis, you hit the nail on the head. I second that. But, I think the thing is that we as people, and it's not just within the Black community, I see this in the LGBT community, I see this in cis world, and, in various communities, because, I'm Black, I'm brown, I'm a child of immigrant, first generation American. I know what it's like in this country and other countries. And we glorify men, we glorify the patriarchy. So I think that is the biggest issue. The fact that to be a man, it means so much in society, and to enter into manhood is such a wonderful, glorious thing for folks. So they can understand, they can wrap their heads around someone transitioning into a trans man, someone transitioning out of femininity. But something about wanting to leave manhood, leave masculinity and male privilege to be a woman, it is deemed absurd to people. They cannot understand. And I remember I had a conversation with my stepfather, who was born and raised in Jamaica, and he was just like, why would you want to do that? The only reason why you want breasts and a vagina is to go, you know, basically sell you know what. And I'm like, I'm gonna transition just so I can be a sex worker. Like, no, that makes no sense. You know, I'm not doing it for men's attention or the male gaze. This is who I am. And I think that we need to dismantle that in itself, but also look at the LGBTQ community at large. And when you say a pedestal, I don't see the pedestal. If anything, I think Black trans women are at the bottom of the totem pole. When I look at the hierarchy and I see how we are treated and talked to and given opportunities or not given opportunities or being paid rates that, you know, our cis, our male counterparts are not, I understand that there is a disparity there and that there's something about being a trans woman that is just not respected. I think women in general don't get that same amount of respect as men do, but to be a trans woman puts you lower on the totem pole. And that I think is the problem. And we really need to get to the root of that and start to like eat away at that and break that up and understand that we can't move forward if we continue like this. And yes, we need to highlight the murders of these Black trans people in general, but if we look at the 22 people listed, it's mainly women, it's mainly femmes. And there is a visceral reaction that comes from a lot of these cis men that are taking our lives that they cannot sit well with us just being, with us just existing. And so we are a threat and they need to take us out. And once we get away from that mentality, once we can start to unlearn that, we can start moving forward and being all encompassing. I mean, we're all encompassing now, but right now it's like, look, you know, when we say POC or people of color and all lives matter, but it's like, look, but Black people right now, you know what I mean? And it's everybody. But right now, they're killing our trans sisters. So come on, we need to speak on it and really push the needle. But it's for everybody. My femininity is intersectional. It is for everyone. It is not just for femmes. It is for non-binary. It is for cis. It's for men. It's for everyone.
You know, thank you both for those responses. And I think I'm glad that you dispelled this pedestal idea, because that's something that I often hear. And I hear it, I don't necessarily, it's funny, I hear it not necessarily within the trans community, I hear it from the outside larger LGBTQIA community, where it's like, you know, well, Black women are on this pedestal. And I said, well, they're dying at a very high rate. I wouldn't necessarily call that a pedestal. Mm-hmm. We do have a comment from Diva Joseph. It's a bit long, so it cut off, Diva, so I do apologize, but I'll read the bulk of it. And it says, Lana made such a good point about crimes being committed by cis men against trans people within marginalized communities. Sometimes as a member of a marginalized community, one can feel nervous to air out sexism, homophobia, and all kinds of bigotry within the community because of fear of white, racially biased, feminism jumping in and blaming those issues on the racial groups in general. I think that there is definitely, you know, I used to get a lot of flack because I always let people know in the beginning of conversations in rooms that I go into, I'm not trans. And I say that because most people will look at me and assume that I am, being that I am feminine presenting, I am a feminine, you know, man. And so Mallery, when you, and Miliana, when you talk about society, period, having such an issue with femininity, with going into femininity and having to box that in or destroy it altogether, it's really a difficult space to navigate. Now, obviously, I don't have a trans experience to navigate myself, but I do understand the anger and rage of being misgendered when I come across cis folks who look at me and think I am a woman. And I'm like, first of all, no, those pronouns are reserved for family who know me. The colloquial, yes, girl. Well, I don't know you. So drop it. But also even in our community, and when you look at like the dating scene and things of that nature, how there are so many masculine men within the LGBTQIA community that really want to take feminism and transgenderism and really fetishize it into something really just perverse and toxic, you know. And then it's like, as a trans woman, if you are not this idea of what I feel a trans woman should be, then I have the right to get angry, and then I'm entitled to treat you however I want to treat you. And a lot of times, as you said earlier, Mallery, that comes out with intimate partner violence. It comes out with, unfortunately, the death of someone because you created this idea of what I should be. And then when I didn't fit into that, you got mad, you know. My last question for the both of you before we end our time together, and I do want to thank both of you for being a part of this conversation and having this conversation. My last question for both of you is, where do you feel we go from here, from where July 8th, 2020, where do we go from here to make sure that trans lives overall, but specifically our Black trans community, is better protected, better respected, and given the equity that they deserve? And I say equity, I say that purposely. I see a lot of people talking about equality. Look up the words, folks. I want you to get your dictionary app, type in equality, type in equity. Equality simply means we are given the same lanes of opportunity. Equity means that we are given the same fairness to achieve and actually gain those opportunities. There's a huge difference. So how do you feel we move on from here to really protect and build equity within the Black trans community?
Yeah, I thank you for saying equity. Thank you. Shout out to Divya. That's my bestie. She jumped in the comments. She's an amazing also person. If you ever need some cis allies, you want to hit her up to join the panel. She's good. She's good. I'm ready for her to start her nonprofit. So, but
yes, Divya, start the nonprofit. What you waiting on, girl?
Come on, girl. So, equitable is such an important word and phrase, and we need to see more than just equality. Yes, we need to be equal, but we need, how do we get there, right? And I think that's a really big question. It's a very loaded question. But I feel like we need to have these conversations more often. We need to be in the living rooms. We need to be the elephant in the room. And let's dismantle that. Let's talk about it. Let's understand. And I think that what is the most important thing to do is for folks to put themselves in our footsteps, in our shoes, to understand what could potentially be like for us to have these stories and these experiences, and for them to understand that, like, look at the lives that we live and the things that we're going through. How can you sleep at night being a cis person, being a person that is not from a marginalized group? The treatment that we are given, do you think that is fair? Do you think that is equitable? Would you want that done to you? How would you feel if every day you turn on the news and you see another person who looks like you being murdered? Or you see Facebook, you see Instagram, and there's another video of someone with their foot on your neck, or another person's been chopped up, put in a suitcase, thrown at the bottom of a river. So I think when people start to have compassion and they start to really empathize for folks, and they understand that this is a struggle, and it is not our struggle alone, it is a human struggle. This is the human condition, and we need to understand that we need to have compassion for people, not just look at, okay, what this person can do for me. Let me vote this way because it aligns with me fiscally. No, understand that this is a human condition and this is a human issue, and that we need to really start to empathize and break down this wall and the separation, and think that that's something over there, that's their problem, that they can deal with that, and they need to just stop hollering and screaming and losing.
Come
Well,
on,
thank you,
sis. You
Lana, for
better
that. Mallory,
preach.
what
You
about
know,
you? How do you feel we move forward from where we are right now?
we need to stop being ignorant. First and foremost, I say that as bluntly as possible because of the fact that so many times people will say, well, I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know to use this pronouns. This person looked this way. So when we start willing to take away the ignorance that we've had about different communities that we don't know anything about and stop stereotyping, stop assuming, and just really try to learn those communities. The first thing I tell people every single time, especially when it's members who are not part of the Black trans community, and they ask the same question, you need to learn our history. You need to understand that we have centuries and decades of brutality from the Klan, Black women seeing their children lynched, sold, didn't even have marriage rights. There's such a deeper rooted, it's like what Lana said, well, it's such a loaded question. And that's because there's such a deepness and heaviness that's in it. And until people are willing to learn more than just 28 days out of the year about Black, because the first thing people say to me, regardless whether they clock me or not, is that I'm Black. So when you take that part of who I am, my identity, and you use it as a weapon of hatred, a weapon of bigotry, a weapon of disrespect, I have a problem with that. And then to justify that with, oh, I'm ignorant, I wasn't learned that, or I was raised in the middle of nowhere, so I haven't had witnessed this before. That's not right, because all of us have an opportunity, just like what you said, Daniel, honey, go get that dictionary. So be willing to learn. Be willing to learn the history of Blacks. Be willing to learn about Marsha P. Johnson, who she is, right? Don't just, oh, I see this mural of this woman. Know who she is. Know our culture, know our heritage, and then step up, demonstrate, help, educate, and this goes from APLA, this goes from the center, this goes from OC. All of us, all of our organizations can do better and do more, and making sure that we are elevating Black voices. And that's one of the ways that we go from here.
Well, I want to thank you two beautiful women, beautiful Black women, for being here with me and having this conversation with me. I am hopeful that things said here have lit fires under some derrieres, have hit some chests deep in the center, and hopefully people have been enlightened and educated. For those who would like to connect with the two of you, are there any social media handles that they need to be following and checking for? And what do you guys have coming up that people need to look out for?
Yes. So if you need to reach me, you can probably I have two emails, my work email, and then you can reach me on social media or my personal email. My personal email is Miliana Singh, so MILIANA SINGH @gmail.com. My work email is the same thing, but with the dot, so MILIANA.SINGH @LGBT Center OC, and that's CENTEROC at LGBTcenteroc.org. There we go. So you can reach me there, and then you can reach me on social media at Lana Patel XOXO. And just check for the social media. I think most of the stuff is going to be on there. I have a panel tomorrow on colorism in the South Asian community, so we'll be speaking on that. I think this month is going to be pretty star-studded with a lot of lives and panels going on, but it's been amazing. I think if any beautiful thing came out of it is the opportunity for us to finally get a seat at the table and to be able to share our stories and our experiences, and for folks that want to hear from us. I hope it's sustainable. I hope that it's not just for right now, and when things die down, then they can't be bothered with us, because you're not before. But I'm excited for what's to come.
Awesome. Mallery, how do people get in contact with you? What you got coming up? You
Yes.
always working on something in the
You know it, child. So yes, I have my work email, which is mrobinson, MROBINSON @centerlb.org, CENTERLB.org. You can email me there. That's my work email. My personal is Mallery Robinson. First name last name 1990 at gmail.com. So you can reach me at both of those emails for just whether you just need information or guidance or support. Definitely I'm here for you. And then my social media, my IG is at Mallery Jenna 90. So MALLERY JENNA 90. So you can follow me there. And we have a panel coming up as well for July 18th. Miliana is going to be gracing us with her presence there as well, along with some other names like Blossom Brown and Shayla Demir and Jasmine Creighton. So many of my Alexis McGee, the list goes on and on for the talk. Lucky Fuller. We're having the long overdue talk about Black Lives Matter, Black voices, sharing Black stories, sharing Black experiences about the discrimination, and just like you said, how we can dismantle things. So that's coming up on July 18th, and I will be sharing that.
Make sure I get the link to that. I want to be a part of the conversation. Once again, thank you guys so much. If you are looking to get in contact with Lana or Mallery, I've put their emails and things in the comment section, so you can look in the comment section and get that information. Thank you, ladies, so much. I'm going to put you backstage. Don't go anywhere. We're going to debrief right after this. I just want to go ahead and do this closing, but thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Folks, it has been a great hour. We are 6 past the hour right now. Normally, this is where I would go into the spiel about what APLA has to offer, the services of Trans Connections and all that good stuff. But right now, I'm just going to go ahead and let that scroll at the bottom. If you are interested in services or need more information about Trans Connections, HIV, STD treatment, or PrEP and PEP information, you can simply go to our website, aplahealth.org, and get that information. But the hour was called Say Their Names. And so I thought it only appropriate that we end this show speaking the names of the 22 trans people that have lost their life in this country since the beginning of the year. Dustin Parker, trans man, 25 years old, shot to death January 1st in McAlester, Oklahoma. Nulisa Luciano Ruiz, aka Alexa, trans woman, age unknown, shot to death February 24th in Tabaja, Puerto Rico. Yampi Mendez Orocho, trans man, 19 years old, shot to death March 5th in Moca, Puerto Rico. Monica Diamond, trans woman, 34, shot to death March 18th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Lexi, trans woman, 33 years old, stabbed to death March 28th in Harlem, New York. Johanna Metzger, trans woman, 25 years old, stabbed to death April 11th in Baltimore, Maryland. Penelope Diaz Ramirez, trans woman, 31 years old, killed in a Bayamon Correctional Complex in Puerto Rico on April 13th. Her death was not reported until April 22nd. Leila Pelea Sanchez, trans woman, 21 years old, and Serena Angelique Velasquez Ramos, trans woman, 32 years old, both burned alive in a car April 22nd while visiting Humacao, Puerto Rico. Nina Pop, trans woman, 28 years old, stabbed to death May 3rd in Sixton, Minnesota. Hella J. O'Regan, trans woman, 20 years old, choked unconscious and then stabbed to death May 6th in San Antonio, Texas. Jane Thompson, trans woman, 33 years old, shot to death by a state trooper May 9th in Mesa County, Colorado. Tony McDade, trans man, 38 years old, shot to death by police on May 28th in Tallahassee, Florida. Selena Reyes Hernandez, trans woman, 37 years old, shot to death by an 18-year-old upon disclosing the fact that she was trans on May 31st in Chicago, Illinois. Rhea Milton, trans woman, June 9th in Liberty Township, Ohio. Dominique Remy Fells, trans woman, 27 years old, found dead with her legs severed June 9th in the Schuylkill River in Pennsylvania. Brayla Stone, trans girl, 17 years old, shot to death June 25th in Sherwood, Arkansas. Arkansas is one of 4 states with no discrimination laws that protect anyone in the LGBTQIA community. Mercy Mack, trans woman, 22 years old, shot to death June 30th in Dallas, Texas. Tatiana Hall, trans woman, 22 years old, found murdered in Irvington, New Jersey on or near June 30th. Shaki Peters, trans woman, 32 years old, found murdered July 1st in Amity City, Louisiana. Bree Black, trans woman, 27 years old, shot to death July 3rd in Pompano Beach, Florida. Drea McCarty, trans woman, age unknown, found murdered in Baton Rouge, Louisiana within the last 2 weeks. Specific time of death is still unknown. 22 trans deaths, 18 deaths are people of color. 14 of those deaths are Black trans women. If nothing else, I hope that this hour has shown the severity and the importance of what it means to have your name spoken in seeking justice for your murder. I hope that you have heard the community in regards to making sure that if you are an ally to the trans community, that there is more work for us to do as well. I always say in groups that I facilitate or conversations that I'm a part of, that as an ally, it is my job to make sure that my allyship costs me something. It might cost me money. It might cost me a position. It might cost me some friends and or family. But if I stand on the truth of what I believe in, it should cost me something. But when we talk about social justice, and we talk about bigotry and prejudice and racism and ending that for any and all communities, the one thing it should not be costing us are Black lives. I hope this hour pushes you to do better as an individual, to go into your workspace and into your circles and into your networks and strive for better, strive for more representation, strive for better policies and more equitable opportunities. As always, I'm your favorite outreach specialist with Trans Connections here with APLA Health's Prevention Department. And I wish all of you a wonderful and amazing night. And I leave you with this. Black lives matter. All Black lives matter. Black trans lives matter. You guys have a good one. And until next time, I'm Danyol Jaye.